All right, hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Silt versus a Psalm of Flesh and Change. So when we last left off, we had two of you, Frank Idle and Dr. Nim, had headed up into the mountains to the hotel of Vernon's Lodge, where a certain adjudicator who is holding a birthday party has apparently been attacked, transformed into a hideous ice saint sculpture, and is now frozen in place in the ballroom. I think when we left things off, Dr. Harrow, still very frozen from the cold, was still investigating inside, but Frank had decided to go out and try and look for two staff members who are still missing in the grounds. Meanwhile, Nora Kane and Vitria Stahl had headed to the Skyward Sprawl. You had taken an underground route to get into the building, making for the sub-level basements. You had been surrounded briefly by the afflicted, as they are known, some very unhappy people, apparently hypnotized by the power of the sprawl itself, this incredible building of combined steel and flesh rising ever higher into the sky. And many of these poor, unfortunate creatures appear to be scuttling through the sewers, trying to make their own way into the heart of the tower to begin climbing it. You've got, I believe, 3 conspiracy clues. So when you do next end an assignment, you are going to get a bit of a special journey scene opportunity as the conspiracy is going to start to interact with all of yous. I think that before we dive into it, I just want to do a little unseen, and I want to shine a light on Sanju Medina. Sanju Medina, we last saw in the miraculous clinic of the Bleeding Witness, a man undergoing God-related cosmetic surgery. He had had literally the flesh of a god, of an angel of beauty, grafted to his own face. And Dr. Harrow did something a little mischievous with him. And I think we can just maybe begin by flashing back to 10 days before the procedure. Sanju Medina is, of course, the youngest scion of the Medina media family. His mother, the matriarch of the family, a very well-known peninsulan pop star. His father, a celebrity lawyer to many of the great and good around Glottage. His siblings, all of them, attractive, good-looking people, find themselves falling, thanks to nepotism, very easily into modeling contracts, acting gigs, their faces appearing on billboards and posters. Sanju, the youngest, somehow never seeming to quite get the same attention. And so for years and years, he'd wondered, is there something wrong with me? Why can't I just command a room in the same way that my siblings or my mum can? And so gradually, he began to embark upon this scheme to fix himself up at the miraculous clinic illegally, in the hope of actually outshining all of his family members and becoming perhaps the matinee star that he so longed to be. And so maybe we open on him having hopped in one of the many family cars shortly after the treatment was complete, completely oblivious to what was about to go down in the miraculous clinic, the fire that was about to ensue. And with the bandages still across his face, he just glanced maybe into the rearview mirror, smirking happily to himself as he was driven home. A couple of days passed, rested, recuperated in bed. Many of the servants of the family bringing him, obviously, nice fruit juices. He even began to just do some push-ups carefully and quietly, starting to think, okay, I'm going to look good, but I need to get my body worked out too. More than once, he'd stand in front of the mirror, trying on some outfits, picturing the future that lay ahead of him. Until finally the morning came for him to remove the bandages and excitedly peeling them back. So thrilled, just imagining what he was going to see. The shriek reverberated through the Medina mansion, the scream of pain and horror, as then, tottering down the stairs, his face contorted, glowing faintly with the power of the radiation that Dr. Nim Harrow infused him with. "Ah, Mum! Mum, help me! Help me!" The Medina matriarch, impeccably dressed as always, gets to her feet and says, Sanju, what's, Mum, please, something's happened to my face. Something's happened to my face. the matriarch of the Medina family took one look at her son and immediately knew what she had to do. She reaches for the phone and says, "This was that clinic, isn't it? They've done something to you. Well, don't worry, darling. We're going to fix this. I'm going to put someone on the case, okay? I'm going to give someone a call." "Hello? Yes, yes. It's me. I want you to put me through again to Captain Lynch and the Godshrikes. I've got a job for them." And as we fade out on the horrified shrieking of Sanchi Medina, let's return right back to the face of Dr. Nim Harrow, still shivering inside. Were you in the kitchen? Remind me, had you moved to the ballroom yet? What do you think, Alex?
I had begun. I think we would open this this episode with him entering the ballroom.
Perfect. Then let's just do that. Yeah. So still with a very warm blanket wrapped around your shoulders, you enter into this great, magnificent ballroom with the figure of Adjudicator Groan, still his glass raised in an eternal toast. Montessa Vernon, standing awkwardly behind you, just has her arms folded and says, "Well, that's what's left of him. What do you think?"
He kind of like side eyes Montessa for a moment and then looks up at the ice statue and says, I think I am surprised that he has not yet started to melt."
She says, "I know, but try reaching out a hand to him and you'll see why."
I tentatively, without touching, obviously, reaches to go towards that space.
You get maybe a couple of inches away from the skin of the Adjudicator before you feel the cold. It's much like your own powers. It is literally irradiating from him, creating an aura of chilliness in the air around you.
Hey. How many of your guests have had access to the ballroom after the fact, or do you keep this place closed off?
Well, we did. Obviously, there was a lot of panic and shouting, but once things had settled, we did try and get everyone out of here and back to their rooms. There's not many of us staff members left, so if anyone's snuck down afterwards, I'm not certain, but we have tried to keep them out as best as we can.
Very good, very good. Well, if you don't mind, I would like to spend some time investigating this just to get my bearings. I'm of a scientific mind. I do not have all the implements I should need, but I just need some time to focus. Perhaps if it's not too much to ask, you could could I get some more of the very lovely tea that let me look at my sheet real quick so I don't that Emery provided?
Of course. And
Thank you.
She turns to go and then says, "When it came before, the wind began to pick up. It started to howl, and you couldn't quite tell when the wind became. It's howling, if you understand me.
I do.
If you think you hear the wind picking up, run."
Duly noted. Just to be clear, unless I am mistaken, there is no prior precedent of this activity before, no? This is a first?
Doctor, wasn't it? At Vernon's
Yes.
Lodge, we cater to the wealthiest people in the peninsula. Do you really think they'd come back here if we had a prior history of people being turned to ice sculptures?
Miss Vernon, if I may speak so bluntly, in my line of work, I am very used to reputation not always leading to good intentions. I have first-hand experience with reputable organizations shuffling things under the rug, as it were, in the betterment of its public visage. Not that I am accusing you of such thing, of course. You just understand my perspective of I have seen worse. I merely ask just to be certain.
So I think before, when she recognized Frank. We noted that you saw her mask fall for a moment and she showed genuine enthusiasm. What you see right now is almost the visor going back up. Her
Mm-hmm.
mouth just tightens into the least genuine smile you've ever seen in your life. And she says, "But of course, you're just doing your job. I'll see about that tea." Turns and leaves you alone in the chaos of the ballroom.
He takes in a very deep breath, um, tightens the blanket around his shoulders a little bit more, and he begins to survey this statue in the immediate area with his kind of analytical mind of, all right, there is clearly some sort of thermal anomaly here, right? Where it's like there's this perpetual cold from the divine manifestations. Very great. How is that interacting with the environment around it? It's all these series of scientific questions he begins to ask about the immediate vicinity of the things, like looking at the at this point the ice sculpture. It's like, is it just a pure transformation of flesh, or are there aspects of other things that were caught in this transformation? Like, did the air transmogrify into ice in parts as well? You know, all of these questions are running through his mind as he's like surveying the scene.
I think you can straight off you can see definitely some interesting bits and pieces. So the ice being see-through, you can see almost like the veins and bones seem to be just these delicate little ice vessels under his skin. You can see right into the heart of this man, as it were. And yes, it's not just him. His final breath is just caught in the air before him. All around him, indeed, maybe there's a few spilled wine glasses that have begun to freeze over, and it's only a decent distance from him, a few feet away, that everything appears to be its normal temperature.
Um, yeah, he's like taking all of this in. He's muttering under his breath. He's fascinated because he's looking deeply in through the translucent ice to see that, like, you can see the bones and the arteries, but also that they are ice themselves. It's like multifaceted. Like, it's very interesting to him. And yeah, I guess I'm looking to just from a surveillance of the scene, see if I can get any clues from this as well. So I'd love to do the information move here.
I would love to let you. Please go ahead, and I imagine an insight is going to be the role here, unless you need
Yes,
another
sir.
justification.
No, I think insight is perfectly fine. That is a 9.
A mixed success. Okay, that's I'll tell you what you see, and then
Mhm.
I'll skip to someone else.
Sounds good.
Um, you do note that while he is holding a glass aloft in one hand, his other hand is just clutched tightly to his side, and you can just about make out that he is holding in his final moments, Adjudicator groan, onto something so tightly, and through the translucent ice skin, you can see that he seems to be clutching onto a very sodden, frozen piece of folded paper. The the problem is you are not going to be able to get this off him without either melting him away entirely, breaking his hand, finding some way to actually get it loose from this now entirely solid fist of ice.
It's so funny you mention that because I do, in fact, have some way to get it out of his grasp. Because last session, I did, as part of my accomplished chemist move, I prepared some calcium chloride salts for de-icing. And I feel like there is a tactical way to go about this, which obviously, look, Nim knows this, and I feel like it's obvious. Adjudicator grown, he ain't coming back. This guy, he's dead. He's dead. He's not gonna mind. But I don't want to, do anything so like desecratory as ripping off a hand or just fully melting him. I feel like a tactical application of some calcium chloride salts to a localized part of the hand. Perhaps if he's like clutching it, being able to like spill it, apply it to that kind of gap where the fingers are curled around, begin to melt away just enough of the hand so as not to be entirely like super visible, and just give it enough room that someone could like reach in there and possibly, pry the piece of paper loose from it.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Well, then in that case, I will just say that as you indeed very carefully apply the calcium chloride, and his what was skin of his fist just kind of melts gently away, and you're able to slip your hand in and take out the piece of paper. Of course, he is dead. If he's hallowed, he may as well be dead, but you are certain for a moment that you hear just through his clenched teeth what sounds almost like a shriek, a post-human shriek of pain. Ah! And then it's gone. Maybe it was just the wind. Um, Nevertheless, you have your bit of paper. I imagine a little bit thawed thanks to the chemical, just gently singed. As you open it up, it is entirely ruined. The wording is very hard to make out, but you do recognize the shape of it. This piece of paper, it has that very distinctive. It starts like the top of a pyramid, then splits down and down and down and down. What you're looking at appears to be a family tree. So that is your clue. While we are looking at the consequences of that, let's skip out to Frank, who has stepped out into the blizzard. The snow just kind of roaring ever more violently now. You look around you and you can see that long driveway you came up. Your van is somewhere down there. And not a van, it's the car, isn't it? The car with a broken windshield, somewhere in the darkness. All around you, the pine trees of the ski slopes, a chairlift still just very gently chucking on over to your right. To the left are the grounds of Vernon's Lodge. We talked about the fact that there's a hedge maze that is rather huge and labyrinthine, and also a bathhouse. And steam is still just gently rising from one of the chimneys. Where do you want to go?
I think what I'd like for Frank is for him to be able to kind of explore this snow drowned parking lot that we described. There's like some skis sticking up. He's going to check to see if that's like just skis stuck in the snow or if somebody's buried in the snow. Originally, some people had come out here to start the cars, and he's trying to like bear through the weather and dig through the snow, trying to learn what might have happened to them, trying to ascertain kind of the danger that might be out here in the storm.
Got it. What are you afraid is going to happen if you fail or if something goes wrong here?
I think Frank is a little bit wary that whatever came for our already deceased will also come for him.
That's a fair concern, isn't it? Absolutely. So yeah, it's a veiled move. You are searching, you've said so, the skis, the cars, trying to look for signs of these missing staff members. Insight could be good, but you could also argue for vitality in terms of just you're trying to endure the cold long enough to have a thorough search.
Yeah, I feel like vitality is kind of what I was thinking. It's like enduring the storm in order to pull up what might be out here.
Absolutely.
Hey, that's not rubbish. 7 on the dice plus 1 vitality is an 8.
8. Okay, awesome. With an 8, so what do you reckon you do find out here? I'll let you lead.
Yeah, I think Frank stands outside. He's maybe just a few feet from the front stairs of the building. Even this far out, his boots, the snow is well up, closing in on his knees. He's kind of wading through it more than anything out into the lot. And he heads first for those skis poking up out of the snow. He thinks it's like the most immediate sign of somebody having been here and maybe still there. And so he trudges towards them and reaches up and kind of tries to pull them back up out of the snow. Does he feel any kind of resistance? Like, are they attached to someone or anything like that?
I think definitely you kind of yank on the skis once, yank on them twice, and then as they come up, they uproot something else, just coming up very suddenly, jump scare style, right up against your face, is another icy body, man who must have been dressed in serving man's uniform, his face just frozen in a rictus of terror, his mouth loud, and the skis have just been impaled right through his chest.
Frank involuntarily gasps and takes in more of that cold air. He's got his scarf wrapped around him, but still it stings his lungs. And I think he looks back at the house and realizes that in this weather, with the snow still coming down, without a cart or a sled or something to help him move them, there's no way he's going to be able to drag this person back to, like, you know, put them to rest maybe in a more pleasant place. And so I think he very gently lays them down on top of the stove near where they already were laying. Are there any defining features about their face or their condition or anything they're holding? Is there any, I guess, kind of aiming for a investigation here? Is there anything that Frank might be able to glean about the attacker from this corpse?
Yeah, I think since you rolled a success, a mixed success, and there's not really a material outcome for finding the body, otherwise, I'm going to say definitely you can. Number one, you understand that the skis have been thrust through this man with inhuman force. No ordinary person could do this. Number two, by the looks of the way that the cracks are spreading all through him, he was already turning to ice when he was struck by the skis. Whatever did this, it seemed to want to make him suffer. It seemed to have a kind of, there's a rage almost to these attacks that seems less methodical, more furious. I think as you examine the body, it's time for your complication, which is very much as you were just looking closer. The wind just surges around you. Your coat just pricks up. Any kind of loose flaps flap around. There's maybe just a gentle, oh, and then, ah! What is not the wind, but a very horrible shriek. And as you look up, down the center of the driveway, standing before you, there is what appears to be a man, dressed in a thick woolly parka, his face completely invisible beneath it, gloves, boots, winter equipment, no skin, no features visible, just almost the silhouette of a winter walker. And this figure is just staring at you completely still.
Frank's going to lower his scarf ever so slightly and give kind of a gentle wave. Hey there, you weathering the storm all right?
Absolute silence. And then the figure begins to walk. And perhaps you're expecting at first this kind of very slow Jason Voorhees style, trudging walk. But then it begins to just run. It is sprinting. Its feet moving far faster, just almost, they're not sinking in as they should on such thick snow. It ought to be slowed down, but it is walking across the snow like it is ice, like it is concrete, just charging at you now, very, very fast. And you can hear that same shriek rising in the air.
Well, that is no good. And Frank is going to turn around and he's at least carved a little bit of a divot as he went to get here to the parking lot. So I think he's just going to turn and he's just going to book it as fast as he can back to the house, casting where he glances over his shoulder as he also runs.
That's perfect. I mean, I think this is a revelation move at this point. It could be vitality. It could be focus to avoid tripping. What do you reckon is a good stat for this?
I feel like this is still vitality because I'm trying to outrun it.
Okay.
My altar that might help.
And what do you think is going to happen if you fail?
As far as what will happen if I fail, I mean, I think I'm going to end up like the poor man back there with the skis through him. I think I'm going to meet an untimely end right here.
I think that's exactly right. Now, how can I actually make it worse than that? I imagine the only way we could make it worse would be Dr. Harrow still in the ballroom as just those beautiful stained glass windows we talked about just smash open as Frank's frozen corpse. And we can see that he's trying to produce the extra hands out of him. So just kind of almost a succession of also frozen Franks spilling out of him, just hits the floor and shatters into a million pieces. And we hear the shriek of this thing again as it then advances on Dr. Harrow. That's how it's worse.
I do have a canister of grease in my altar,
Go on.
which, since at least it's been under my clothes for a while, is probably not immediately frozen. Plus, it probably has a higher or lower melting or freezing point than the snow outside might. I think Frank, as he's running, he's going to like scrabble with his hand in his pocket, find that canister, and just uncork it and just thrust it behind him, wiggling his arm around, just kind of sprinkling it all over the snow, over the ground, just like anything that might then trip up or slip up this thing chasing after him. And I will mark that from my altar, and I will roll with advantage.
Awesome.
That is a 7 on the dice. Once again, +1 is 8. However, I think what I'd like to do is mark the verse of avaricious longing to turn that into a clean success.
Awesome. So the verse of avaricious longing is the assignment verse. So we will, I think, perhaps not right this second, but we will ask everyone to, what was it? It's something to do with horrible wealth.
It's what would you do with your life if you were fabulously wealthy? Everyone will answer that question.
Everyone, please answer that question. All right, so you're going to bump it up to success.
Yep.
Amazing. Okay, lovely. Let's cut there and jump across to Vitria and Nora. When last we left, you were just approaching the sub-levels of the Skyward Sprawl, and you'd seen in the sewers something rather horrible and strange, which was some of the corpses that were just their flesh almost spreading into the walls here. Even disfigured and hallowed as they were, their flesh still seemed to be trying to move inwards and upwards towards the heart of the tower. Ahead of you is a manhole, light falling down through it, leading presumably upwards into the basement of the tower. Over to you.
I feel like there's like airflow, and Vitria can't help but think it feels like air rushing up like through like brachia or whatever through the lungs, this sort of slightly damp like air sort of going and she sort of shivers despite it not actually being that cold, and looks at Nora and says, "The Slag King didn't do this."
No, it does seem a little too. Nora also kind of rubs her arms and looks around. Little too organic. I mean, despite she kind of gestures at her face as if to indicate the rusted iron sores on the afflicted,
My God's one of lines and angles and measurements and triangles and Fibonacci spirals. This is something else. So I guess we'll just have to climb through the disturbingly windpipe like tunnels to get up to the sub levels.
Awesome. All right. I imagine that Vitria, you were taken to the ladder first. You just very gingerly clank, 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 climb the manhole, just gently push the cover that was already ajar to one side, and you look up and around you. The basement of the Skyward Sprawl is vast, cavernous, steel beam foundations just stand there like pillars of some vast cathedral all around you. That isn't what's strangest here. What's strangest is that you're looking at a garden of flesh, bodies of the afflicted all around you, spread over the walls, the ceiling, the floors. Still just, you can make out the occasional face and hand, but as they've formed this kind of human soil bed all around the basement, they've begun to sprout like flowers. Huge lilies of flesh just coming up from the open rib cages, bones surrounding these gorgeous blooms on all sides, and grey spores of iron or rust just rise up from each flower, as if attempting to further pollinate the garden. There is light here from these same spores. You can see the grandeur, the strangeness, and the horror. And right in the center, quite distant, you can see a single steel elevator shaft. There's one other thing too. Someone in the garden is humming. But before we go any further, we've got to paint the scene for you. Paint the scene, and I'd love just to get everyone's input on this because I think there's lots of fun to be had here. What miracles of the sprawl are born as flesh grows into building? So what can we see down here as flesh conjoins with building?
I think the pillars are trying to ascend as well. Like they're like they're made of clay and they're being, pulled up like taffy or something they're sort of rising like almost like a drip in reverse and growing and blossoming into the ceiling, as if they're trying to leave the ground behind.
I think there's a cluster of bodies, flowers in the corner that is forming the shape of a fountain. And occasionally, when nobody's looking, there is water flowing from the fountain, but if someone were to see it, they would notice that rather than it being water to begin with, it's blood that is transformed into water as it falls.
Awesome. Thank you. Any more for any more?
I think that there are patches of the concrete where there are pockmarks in it, as concrete so often can get. But those pockmarks sticking out of it, there are either shreds of wire or rebar, like hairs coming out of follicles along the surface.
I think we see a large number of support beams that look at first to be steel, like steel girders that form part of the foundation, but they're much paler than steel. They're kind of a yellowish white. And if you look towards like where the base of these girders emerge from, there are fingers sprouting from the ground. It's, the keratin of fingernails grow thick and dense and layered into very thick pillars of supports.
That is absolutely gruesome and brutal, and I love it. So yeah, we have these horrible fingers, these follicles, these pillars trying to push upwards, this fountain of bodies. The two of you are in this remarkable and not at all disgusting place. By the sounds of things, someone is in here with you, but from their humming, which is very relaxed and out of place in this environment, they do not appear to have heard you yet. What do you want to do?
I think Vitria keeps taping more of the safety tape around the joins, and like she's telling beads on a rosary, and keeps checking the rebreather and saying, "Lord of lines and angles, protect me here, protect me. I am far from your perfection."
I think Nora kind of mutters, like trying not to draw the attention of whoever this is, just mutters, Yeah, at least it's not mushrooms. I think it ever comes from mushrooms.
I'm a bit concerned this is worse than mushrooms, Nora. I think she'll call out, "Hello, who's that singing? We'd like to get to the reception, please."
I think the humming, which Alex has described as the girl from Ipanema Muzak, and I think absolutely that's what we're going with. Huh? And you just hear the humming is replaced by a sort of squeak, squeak, squeak. And just appearing over the verge of this garden of flesh, you see the most extraordinary sight. There is a man, or what is left of one, another of the afflicted with those same rust boils in his face, his skin ashen grey. His legs appear to be gone. The entire bottom half of him has almost become a great big block of concrete. And he's made the best of a situation, it seems. He's placed himself in a wheelbarrow and he's carrying a spade with him, which he uses as an oar to steer himself forward towards you. And then he comes to a rapid halt, still giggling madly to himself, and says, "Ah, visitors to the tower, come to see its power? Ah, I am Brute."
You are Groot? Visible question mark above Nora's head.
Brute. Like the sparkling wine. Brute. A pleasure. And who are you?
We are from the Bureau for the Investigation and Assimilation of Stray Deities, and we are here to investigate the horror that dwells in the heart of this building.
What horror?
The Slag King did not make this. This is an abomination. The supply chain has been defiled.
Brute kind of like, he immediately starts to kind of rock dangerously back and forth as he does it, but he absolutely kind of lifts his spade as if he's expecting you to attack him and says, "No! The sprawl must rise. The sprawl must grow. Ascend. Ask the mother. She knows."
Who is the mother?
Mother Asbestos. Above she rules in the shining apartments of ease.
I think I'm going to try, because Brute seems to be all about gnomic, cryptic utterances. I'm going to try a gnomic utterance of myself. So I was thinking maybe of trying to do a investigation with insight to try and spout some kind of something that will be satisfying to this individual, and will glean a clue.
I mean, it's not just an investigation. I think this is a very strange man who you've just declared that you think that his beloved garden is an abomination to. So this definitely is going to be a veiled move. What do you think is going to happen if you fail here?
I think that the garden reacts to Brute's emotions like an immune system.
I think that is, yeah, that's absolutely perfect. Let's do it. Roll with insight, if you please. And you've only got one condition. Go on.
I'm going to use my hat. I'm going to brandish my hat and say, "The Lord of the Procurement compels you to answer my question, wretch." I'm going to use that for advantage and add one to my track. So, and I'll do it with so yeah, we're sticking to insight, I think, or communion. Oh, sorry, what do we think, insight or communion?
I mean, if you are literally
No.
trying to invoke the Slag King communion, if you're just trying to, I guess if you're just trying to frighten him, maybe presence it would have to be rather than insight, right?
I think because I've used the hat, it kind of has become communion, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I've got myself into that They were both +0s anyway. So that's nice. I got a 10.
Perfect. Well, first, I've described the reaction you get from him instantly as you brandish your hard hat.
Well, it's got on the very top of it, it's got the logo of the Slag King's construction company, but also a series of prayer marks of the Slag King, which are all very geometric and precise in their sort of mathematical perfection. And I think it's a bit like holding a holy symbol at a vampire. So there's a bit of a
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think Brute just goes, no, ah, ah, and maybe he tries even to kind of to row himself away. It just tips the wheelbarrow over and falls, that great heavy mass of concrete round his torso, just falling with him until he's spluttering on the ground. He said, please, please. Brute only wants to serve the sprawl, help it to grow. Here, I will show you. We follow the instructions of the great Lucian Baton, the architect, the creator. All we wish to do is bring his vision to life. Mother, that is what she tasked me with. Yes, yes. And he kind of produces from maybe the mess of his wheelbarrow, he produces a book, a very elderly looking book, covered in maybe little flesh globules and soil over time, but you can make out the cover. This is your clue. It is a book that is titled Religious Dread and Architecture by Lucien Beton.
This book was banned. Where'd you get this?
We were left it. It was bestowed upon the mother, and the mother gave it to me, yes, to tend to the garden, to help tower to grow.
I think Vitria is going to turn to Nora and say, I think he's in a world of his own. Is there any way that you can make this fiction work for us? You're the great performer. Would your watcher be entertained?
Gee, I hope so. Nora is gonna think for a moment, which is code for I'm checking what the wording of my faith move is. So what do we want to try to get out of this guy? Like specifically, do we want him to let us pass, or we want more information?
A bit of, I don't know, I just can't tell whether he's actually just like completely, like whether he even really knows like who we are, or like it's hard to tell if he even knows what's real or if that even means anything to him or what he knows.
If it's helpful, as you stand over him, he is now just kind of babbling to himself. Draw the mark, the sprawl will rise. Dreams are concrete, rust red eyes. Don't hide the truth if you are wise.
So I think that
Do you want me to get to go and come back, team?
hang on. I think that what Nora's gonna do is like very gingerly like pick up the book, which and kind of like open it just somewhere in the middle and start like reading from part of the pages, like with the hope that Brute's gonna kind of respond back, maybe not with the next verse, but with like something that is actually coherent, like in the form of, like in the cadence, in the, I guess like in the writing style of this book. So like, gosh, what's it called? Lich Dread Architecture. Make only the floor of glass, for the ceiling of such shall be broken. Yeah.
That's really nice. So you're trying to kind of basically get him to commune with the book in a way. Is that the plan?
Yeah.
All right, lovely. We got a Garden of Flesh, a banned book. I think this is got to be the revelation move, right? There is a god at work here. So what do you think is going to happen if you fail or lose your nerve here?
I think that Nora's gonna hate me for this. That if Nora loses her nerve, or if like Brute gets too into the call and response, that the book is sort of going to start taking over maybe the space, or maybe Nora herself.
I think that is absolutely awesome. I think probably, yeah, the only way I can think of that being worse is the book is you are gonna begin indeed just hypnotically speaking the words of the book, and you are gonna summon the architect Lucien Baton. And I think Brute is just gonna start going, "You are not him, you are not him, you are not him." And we're gonna hear that elevator start to come downwards as the architect himself returns to reclaim his book. So that's what's going to happen. Would you like to roll?
Yeah, let's see how this goes.
It's got to be communion, I figure, right? If you're...
Yeah, which is a +0. And fair warning, I have been rolling terribly in every game since like last Monday. Not counting yesterday when I was rolling stats for D&D. But
you're owed a win, you're owed a win.
We'll see how this goes. Okay, it's a 9.
A 9, awesome. Okay, let's come back to that. Let's jump right back to Frank. And Frank, would you like to describe to us how you escape from this figure that is chasing you using your grease?
Yeah, Frank has just littered the concrete pavement that's buried under the snow, littered some of the snow itself with this slick, viscous grease behind him as he panics and stumbles towards the front doors. He clambers up like the last couple of steps, and he hears the wind howling behind him. He feels an icy chill at his back as he pulls up to the doors. I think he grabs the handle and he wrenches it to the side, swings it open, feels the air gust in, almost lets it carry him inside, and then grabs the door and slams it behind him. And I think he hears like a thud at the door as he enters. But then the wind kind of, that was swelling, retreats. And well, what have we learned? What have we learned? It's not safe out there. That's for sure. We got a group of people. There's no way we're getting out of this. I gotta find the doctor. And Frank's gonna run off to go find where the doctor is in the building.
Awesome. Yeah, well, Dr. Harrow, you're just unfurling this bit of paper that appears to be an old family tree that was clutched in the frozen ice sculpture of the adjudicator when Frank bursts in through the doors.
Dr. Harrow, doctor, you around here?
Frank, I'm over here. He's just like comes out from behind the ice statue.
Hey, it's still out there,
I
and
did not
I
have
gave it a
reason
very
to believe
polite
that
wave,
wouldn't be.
and it's not here in reason.
I did not expect it to do that, but I'm glad you're okay. Yes, I was just taking a look over the adjudicator's frozen form. Did you find anything out there? I thought you were going to the vehicles.
Well, I was on my way there. There was this set of skis that I was really concerned about. I figured there might be somebody buried there under the snow. There
Okay.
was, but the skis were normally the skis are on the feet. These ones were kind of gestures. They're more in this region, not where you expect to find skis, you see. And then right about that time, there was this burst of wind, a howling noise, and then
The
there's this
owner did tell me
figure.
that if you, yes, no, I was just informed of that the appearances of this manifested divinity are preceded by howling winds. So that is, if she told me in her own words, if you hear it, run. And it appears that you did, so I am glad.
Well, I feel like I was a tad late on my escape, but I
Okay.
did make it in. It's still out there, not in here, which is I think where we'd rather it be. But I think we're gonna have a real nasty hard time getting these people out of here if we try to get out of here during the squall.
Funny that you mentioned that. Yes, segueing into answering this first question, I feel like this is the perfect time to do it. Based on both our experiences in roleplay, but also some of these clues, my stab at this is going to be that I think it's better for we to solve the murder to stay here. I don't know what David may have already been thinking, but I'll just like throw out like right off the bat the thing that sticks out to me from at least like a clue perspective is that the lightning strikes and the piece of paper in the adjudicator's hand. Storm is bad, but I mean all of those lightning strikes are localized, so I mean at least it's not like a pressing immediate issue of things are going to be coming down here. And also, there's something deeper at play. He was clearly valuing this, some kind of like familial, like he was clearly holding on to something for dear life, which means that there is something worth investigating here. Like there might be a deeper reason for what's going on. At least that's what jumped out to me immediately.
No, I like that. I think the clues definitely support a reason for us to stay more than they support. I think the narrative reason is Frank's like, if we leave here, it's going to be a bloodbath, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's no like, even if we survive, barely any one of those with us are going to be able to bear with either the weather or the dangers on our way escaping from here. So, yeah, I like that justification. It's like, also, if we stay here, we have a much better shot at figuring out what's going on because clearly there is something going on.
Yeah, all the stuff going on with the horrifying monster out there, that notwithstanding, clearly on the way up, we saw like these repeated lightning strikes in the storm, but it's not as concerning to be here amidst a lightning storm when we saw the fact that the lightning is striking the same place over and over again. So it's not like there's the risk of the hotel getting struck and bursting into flames. It's like there's clearly something that's occupying that. So yeah, I mean, like I'm fine just keeping to those two and holding on to our third as a for a future question because that seems like enough justification to me.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Who'd like to roll for it?
I've had good luck twice. I'm not going to press that. You want to roll for this, Alex?
Sure. Yeah, why not? Offset it onto me. What could go wrong? So that's a 6.
A 6, huh? Okay. I think let's leap from that back to the other two while I figure out what the hell kind of horrible thing's going to happen to you. As a reminder, of course, I think if you want to up the result, all of you need to write a verse. Let's hop right back to Nora then for a moment. Nora Kane, reciting from this mysterious book about dread and architecture. And almost Vitria, as you watch, Nora almost maybe seems to transform a little bit, standing towering and authoritative as Brooke just kind of whimpers for her, just like, oh, And what he says as he gazes up at her is quite remarkable. He says, "You've returned. You've returned, Mr. Bitter. Oh, see what we've done. Do you like what we've done with the place? We're sorry that you were so dissatisfied. But the sprawl is beautiful. It can be perfect. Why can you not see that it is perfect?" So the clue is proof that Lucien Baton was unsatisfied with his creation, which Brute suggests here that there was something wrong with the sprawl that the architect disliked. And as for your consequence, I think very much the shadow of the architect is upon you in this place. If Lucien Baton still lurks in some form within this building, he is watching you. He has heard you read from his book, and he is coming. So I think, Rhyme, if you'll accept it, I would suggest something like Shadow of the Architect would be a good condition.
Oh, that's a great name for a condition. Vitria, when she hears that, feels almost satisfied because Lucien Baton's a prominent member, a martyred prominent member of the faith, and was very prominent in the architects of the church. And so the idea that he was responsible for this was very offensive to her. So for weirdly, even though it's much more dangerous for Nora and Vitria, she's sort of secretly relieved and looks down at Nora and says, are you okay, Nora?"
Nora's kind of gonna close the book, blink a few times. I mean, I've got a headache coming on, but aside from that, I think I'm fine. Determinedly ignoring the like feeling of eyes looking at the back of her head. Yeah, I'm okay.
I feel like maybe the eye of the architect upon you is a blessing in this place, although it might not feel like it.
Very least, at least I've got an audience now instead of just, you know, she kind of gestures skyward, indicating, just the one god who I had watching me. That was definitely not enough of an audience. Sure. Sarcasm,
Oh,
both mine and Nora's.
It must be sweeps week in the studio of your god.
I think as Brut kind of looks back and forth between the two of you, he's kind of eager to please now in that very Smeagol way, where he says, "Oh, servant of the great Mr. Baton, you must ascend, speak to Mother Asbestos, but do not stop before the uppermost floor for the servants of the vile Slag King." Yeah, he spits out like a solid lump of kind of rebar almost. They lurk below in the lower floors. They wage war against the mother and her children, seeking to overthrow them, to take the tower for themselves. You must avoid them as carefully as you can. Ascend to the uppermost level. Speak to Mother. Tell her that Brut sent you. Tell her that you were blessed by the great Mr. Baton.
Sure,
Sorry, go on.
We'll do that. Nora kind of looks at the elevator. It's like, I guess there's no chance there are stairs, huh?
I feel like comparing this elevator to the stairs is simply comparing one nightmare to another.
You have
I think
a point.
I will say that there is indeed a stairwell, and you can imagine that it probably climbs most of the tower, but you can see across from you, at this point, it is completely swamped with just a wall of writhing flower flesh. So that option is definitely open to you once you get out of here, but it does appear that that currently is blocked off.
I think perhaps the elevator might listen to my invocations if we were to entreat it to take us safely to the top.
Sure. Let's play nice with the metal box of death. Okay. Nora kind of half like bows her head, half like nods to Brute, like, thanks for your help.
He gives you like the lowest of courtly bows, and for a moment, you know, he's almost genteel the way he does it. Please, when you have spoken to the mother, you are welcome in my garden whenever you wish.
I think Vitria is going to do the equivalent of Homer backing into the bushes in that Simpsons meme into the elevator.
Awesome. So did I gather you're going to try and attempt to commune with the elevator to make sure it gets you to where you want to go? Is that the case?
I'm not convinced it's not going to try and kill us, because that would probably be entertaining to the kind of god that would do this to a building. So I'm going to try and basically convince it to do its damn job and take us all the way up to the top with an express elevator.
Sounds good. We're not really getting in the low stakes role so far this session. I love it. Yeah, this is a hallowed elevator you're trying to commune with. A god is involved. This is going to be a revelation move. What do you think is going to happen if you fail?
I think it's going to pass through some kind of dimension within the guts of the building, and we're not going to like what we see when the doors open.
Here's how it's worse than this, and I am going to be a mean keep of once and give you disadvantage, because who is more appropriate for an elevator than a bellhop? I think what's going to happen if you fail is you are going to, you know, start pressing the buttons, scratching your prayers into the wall of the elevator, attempting to commune with it. And for a moment, you'll think that it's worked. But the bellhop himself is just going to be there, standing in the lift with you, with a little smile on his face. And he presses the button to the one place he's going to take you. And you just go down and down and down, leaving the skyward sprawl behind as you descend into his domain.
They all float in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't have anything in my altar that really makes sense. Oh God, am I gonna just do the hat again? I am gonna do the hat again. The hat's gonna the hat's coming out again. I think. So I'm totally gonna regret this later, but No. It's a sign that my face sheet is working correctly that I'm afraid to do the hat again. So I think I'm just gonna go for it on a flat roll. But I have disadvantage, don't I, because of the bellhop?
You do.
Oh, this is grim. No, I actually think I'm just gonna have to use the hat and be done with it to cancel that out and get a flat roll. On communion. Let's try that again. Oh, that's an 8.
An 8 it is. Awesome. All right. Let's come back to the consequences of that and just skip to Dr. Harrow and Frank. And Alex has said, would it be okay to understand what the unlocked questions for either result are? Yeah. So it's basically the same structure as the bowed companion, where you make a choice and that leads you towards the route of resolving the assignment. So obviously, if you successfully choose to investigate the murder, the question is, what is driving the latecomer's rampage? Complexity 6, resolve the assignment by figuring out the ultimate goal of the latecomer or anyone controlling it, then neutralizing the threat. This is the better result that will get you a special move. If you do not wish to do this, then the question you end up with is, how have I lost that? The question is, who will the custodians save and how will they get them to safety? And this is quite a tricksy one because the complexity goes up with the number of people you want to save. So it's one complexity starting out if you just wish to save yourselves. If you wish to start saving people, it is going to be adding on 1 complexity per person.
I will say that I personally love the idea of Frank and Nim investigating a murder and like getting full in the weeds there. But I'd also see a reality where like lightning strikes the hotel, now everything's on fire, everything's bad, we have to evacuate people. That's also fun. So I'm fine writing a verse to make our theory correct, but I will roll with whatever David and the others want to do.
I'm so torn because the problem with having a character like Frank is I love having bad things happen to him, because seeing how he deals with it is just such a pleasure to figure out. On the other hand, I also just love a whodunit here at the mansion.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that sounds so fun. So I'm really torn by whether it's like deal with everybody dying around them or instead investigate a mystery. I think I would love to mark a verse and do it. Yeah,
me too, honestly. Like I'm buying, like if James and Ryan are also cool with that, I'm so intoxicated by the idea of like seal the doors and there's someone in this room is a murderer, you know, like
I want the full mystery experience, and I want a bit more of that Shining vibe, so I'm totally happy to write a verse to that end.
Yes. Awesome.
Oh.
Yeah, then let's write verses.
Fantastic. Okay, so yeah, everyone please write your verses. Does anyone feel like pitching in now, or shall I lurch forward with the consequence?
Well, I will definitely go ahead and contribute to the verse of avaricious longing, since David marked that earlier. I can go ahead and get mine out of there. I feel like for Dr. Harrow, if he was fabulously wealthy, he would dedicate his existence supporting as many scientific foundations as he could with complete and utter oversight of their functions, never again letting the whims of bureaucracy determine the ethics and practices of a scientific collective. He alone would provide oversight and support to the innumerable scientists out there who are looking to better the world or discover new and fascinating things about divinity or mundane existence that are otherwise ignored and trod over for the name of capitalism.
Nice, thank you. Well, yeah, David's pointed out we're about due for a break. Do people want to also pitch in with their verse of avaricious longings, if they're up for it, and then we can take a 5?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that before the break. I think for Frank, we just see. I think first we see like that bit of him walking back up to his like apartment when it's burned out, and like his father and his grandmother have both perished. And then like time rewinds and we see him instead when he's like there hanging out with his dad in the laundry room. They're doing the laundry, only now the laundry is no longer this threadbare room. It's this much more spacious, opulent. There's cabinets to put all of your detergents. There's spare bins and stuff to store the clothes as you go through it. There's a chute that leads to somewhere else in this place they now live. And the camera like pulls out through the window, and we see that what was this shabby apartment on the 3rd floor of this rundown building is now this like gorgeous like 3-story house. It's got, you know, cars. It's got a little pool in the back. It's this really like nice looking estate. And Frank, as like a kid, we see him like, you know, run down the stairs from helping out his dad with the laundry. And he like goes down to like this mom who we haven't seen before and like hugs her leg, and then goes over to like sit next to his grandma who's knitting, and she like taps the seat next to him, next to her, and he hops up and grabs a pair of needles and starts studying under her there. I think we see this much more idyllic, or at least seemingly idyllic path that he might have gone down in his past instead.
I can narrate as well. I think for Nora, we're seeing her sitting in the audience at the end of some play that's gone on. All of the cast has come forward and they're taking their bows. And when that's all over, the lights come back on and she just leaves with the rest of the crowd. And there's nothing special about her. There's nothing drawing anyone's eyes. She's just almost invisible. She's just another person there, with the thought that if she had enough money, she could pay to basically make herself disappear from whatever records the government and especially the army is keeping, so that she could just live a life.
Awesome, thank you. Anything for Vitria?
Oh, sorry, the door just rang for my delivery. Can I do it after the break? But I'll be
Yeah,
right back.
that sounds good. Should we take 5 then, folks? Awesome. I'll see you back here at approaching past. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. So we've got one more verse of Avaricious Longing, and then we're going to hop right back into the thick of it. Vitria.
So for Vitria, as has been implied, actually, the problem is not lack of money, because Vitria grew up surrounded by wealth. The problem was the lack of anything else, any other kind of wealth. Because the people in her family, her sort of stern patrician father, her disapproving mother, her sister, her siblings who were all competing with her, they were clean and perfect and engineered and designed like a building. Everything was precise, but there was no warmth there. There was no whimsy. There was no emotional depth or wealth. So she lived in a place that was cold and austere, like the buildings that her family created. And so what she would do is not gain more wealth, but relive her childhood and be rich in other ways.
It's very nice. Well, yeah, I think mixed success you got. So to get the elevator working, you were going to commune with it. Just to check for the complication, where did you want the lift to take you?
Oh, let's go up to the top and talk to who's in charge, this Mother Asbestos.
Okay, so yeah, please describe how you commune with the elevator.
I mean, I think as you implied, it's more blood magic, basically. It's like the same, daubing blood and concrete dust to create sigils on the buttons, and creating a really complicated prayer mark around the penthouse button, like radiating out from around the penthouse button, like carving and scratching it while speaking liturgies to the Slag King and whispering into the intercom grate, like in treaties, and like whispering, like psalms and promises, and then hoping that the god is present and will ensure that precision ensues.
Very nice. So mixed success, you step into the elevator, the doors close behind you, and you press the button for the very uppermost floor. And there's just a very long silence as you repeat this liturgy. And then the lift just begins to shake. You can it's almost as if the flesh around the elevator shaft is kind of pressing in on it, forcing it upwards. And it begins to rise. And you can see the little arrow tick, tick, tick past the lobby. And then quite suddenly, it stops on perhaps the 3rd or 4th floor. And the doors just kind of judder for a moment. And then they come open. And I don't know if any of you have seen the hallway scene from Old Boy, but if you imagine extending from the elevator a corridor, and ahead of you is the strangest sight, because there is almost an army of Vitrias ahead of you, but perhaps Vitrias who've gone feral, lost boy Vitrias. You can see laborers in overalls and orange hard hats who are still wearing some kind of battle paint on their faces, clutching bits of pipe, wrenches and iron. You can see people in suits who again have kind of maybe used their ties to do Rambo headbands, all of them armed and all of them staring towards the elevator as if they were about to advance upon it. And at their head is a monstrous figure wearing a welder's mask with a very large blowtorch that is aflame with blue fire coming out of the end of it. And all of them stare at you in disbelief as you're there in the elevator ahead of them. You have maybe one moment to react before they overcome their surprise. What will you do?
Duck.
Is that the plan? Is that duck?
Yeah, I have a feeling the blowtorch is about to come through the crack in the door.
Okay. Nora, what are you going to do?
Stab the door closed button and then duck.
I'll do
Okay,
the
I mean-
socially awkward thing of like mashing the door closed button.
How am I going to rule on this? Just, I think a roll for are the elevator doors going to close is, so you've got a mixed success on the roll to commune with the elevator before. You're both kind of ducking down, closing the doors. So the elevator does obey you to a certain extent, but is not entirely under your control. Let me come back to this because I want to figure out how we can not just get you out of the situation by pressing a button, but also respect your action and desire to escape. Let's jump back to Dr. Harrow and Frank. So you knocked it up to a mixed success for your plan. So your assignment question, which I will drop in. What is driving the latecomer's rampage? You're going to resolve the assignment by figuring out the ultimate goal of the latecomer, or of course, anyone who might be controlling it. And oh my goodness, someone has just done a little bit of artwork for Winter Spite, which is
That would be me. I make little banners for the character keepers. So I do those. I'm making them in the background.
That is adorable. Thank you, Alex. Cool. What is driving the latecomer's rampage? So it's difficulty 6, resolve the assignment by figuring out its ultimate goal and then neutralizing the threat in some way. So the mixed success means you get off to a bad start. So I think it's as simple as the two of you are standing there in the ballroom, you hear a scream, a human scream, but a high-pitched, horrified scream from the kitchen directly behind you.
I feel like Nim and Frank run in that direction. Yeah.
Oh yeah, right there.
I think absolutely just you barrel through the kind of the swinging doors and you see Montessa, very pale, just kind of sit on the floor, and ahead at the counter, Emery, the drunken chef. His soup ladle is just held to his lips. The steam is now solid ice rising from the soup as he is in ice sculpture form. Montessa goes, "How did it get inside?" She just looks back at you. "How did it get back inside? We locked all the doors. What? It's in here with us."
I just saw it outside just moments before. I ran in from. I slammed the door behind me. Nothing came in with. Are we certain there's no other way in here? Has somebody blocked the? I know it might do bad for the fire, but someone considered blocking the chimney?
There is indeed above the stove. There is a massive iron chimney, but it's too small for a human being, let alone the figure that you saw, to fit down. Montessa looks and says, "Yes, I suppose I could get some blankets." "Oh, Emery, I'm so sorry."
Miss
what do we
Vernon,
do?
I would like you to please leave the kitchen. I do not wish you to befall any dangers that might still be present. I think it would be wise if you should gather all of the remaining guests into the lobby. Frank and I will wish to speak with everyone, address these current issues so that we can all be on the same page. You and the staff, if you could please gather everyone in the lobby. We will speak to them once they are present and accounted for.
And along the way, have everybody check their windows.
Yes, that too.
Of course, I'll do that. And looking a little humbled, a little bowed, she kind of gets upright. I think very much cut to 10 minutes later, and you are on the staircase looking down at a small and mostly hostile crowd. So there's Montessa, of course. There's a young woman in a serving outfit. This is Arabella, who I believe we said was the one remaining maid. Almost everyone else appears to be a guest. Sorry, Leonora was the name of the maid. You can see the guests ahead of you. Ray Ghibli, the construction mogul, in his bow tie and dinner jacket, his arms folded, a burly, bullish-looking man. He's got the build of a former boxer about him, and he's just snarling up at you very faintly. Next to him stands Mr. Nib, his accountant. A very slender, perhaps slender-looking man, perhaps the only calm person in the room right now. Smooth-scalped, entirely bald, very thin, and just faintly smiling under his breath. He has a very small pencil moustache. You can see Commissioner Ernest Vanderkamp, the Glottage police chief. He has the look of a man who was drunk by the time the chaos broke out at the party and has had to sober up quite quickly. He looks very sweaty still. His tie has been undone, and he's just mopping frantically at his face. Frank the Flash Palanche, the skier, traditionally handsome and athletic looking, is standing near the back of the room. And Mercy Vanderkamp, the singer and radio star, the husband of Ernest, younger than him, very fashionably dressed in a gorgeous looking sparkly ball gown, is just smoking furtively. All these people stare up at you, waiting to hear you speak.
Ladies, gentlemen, my name is Dr. Harrow, and this is Mr. Frank Idle. We are custodians with the Bureau for the Investigation and Assimilation of Stray Deities. We are gathered because we believe with due cause that there has been malfeasance present, and we want to ensure everyone's safety and cooperation during our next steps of this investigation.
You get some mutters. When you say the words, there's been some malfeasance, I think Ray Ghibli just goes, yeah, no shit. Scowls at you. There's kind of a few nods maybe, but the crowd generally isn't reacting so well to your words so far.
Yeah, he like swallows like a lump at his throat, and like side eyes over at Frank a little bit.
Frank is standing behind you, I think, by where we've entered through these doors. It's still cracked. There's a little bit of light slipping through. He's standing like half obscured by the light, and he just nods to you for you to continue.
I regret to inform everybody that there has been another death in the hotel. The cook, Emery, some of you I suspect may have become familiar with him. We ask that everybody please stay away from the ballroom and the kitchen while we are actively investigating. We would like to speak with each and every one of you so that we can ensure your safety and adequately move as quickly as possible during this most terrifying time. Believe us when I say that your safety is foremost our priority, and ensuring that this event is resolved quickly so that you may all breathe easier.
Mercy Vanderkamp has a hand raised as if she's in class.
Yes.
Where are the rescuers? Where are the helicopters, the police vans? Why has a team not been sent up? Don't they know we're up here?
Yes, there is an awareness, but due to the nature of the storm and the condition of the roads, it is very difficult for any mounted effort to be made. And given the perils outside, my associate, Mr. Idle, and I have decided that it would be more detrimental to all of your lives to attempt to leave the hotel than for a rescue to even attempt to come down, or for you to go down to meet a rescue. I understand the concerns and the stress, but believe us when we say we have thoroughly weighed the situation and believe that it is all the more safer to exist under these circumstances than the alternative.
Mercy just looks at you and then says, Ernie, you outrank him. He says we can't leave. Do something. And Ernest van der Kamp, the police commissioner, goes, so, yes. Hello there, I'm glad you're taking charge of things. I, of course, will be in command here, overseeing our defenses. How are things going? Is everything good? Have we formed a perimeter?
Now is when Dr. Nim fully turns to Frank with the hands behind his back and the look of, yeah, you take this one.
And this is where we flash back quickly to a conversation that Dr. Harrow and Frank had before entering the room. It's the two of you are in the hallway, and I think as well, what's the name of our guide who's been helping us out here?
Montessa,
yes. I think maybe Montessa, who's like maybe ushering the maiden ahead of her, she's also here with the three of us. And I stop the two of you and like, I full send agree that gathering everyone together like this is going to be our best way forward. Helps us keep everybody safe. Helps us maybe keep everybody under watch. But if there's some sign that somebody's up to some wrongdoing here, we're not gonna necessarily find all of it if we're just talking to them, if we're just keeping them busy. Everybody has a room here, and oftentimes if people don't expect anybody to go rummaging through it, they leave things out that might be indicative of their actions or behaviors. My thought is I can go through the rooms. I've got the keys that Montessa gave me earlier. You can handle the crowd while I handle the things. And of course, you ain't got to worry too much about me if something is stalking the house here. I can stay plenty well safe myself, and I figure I ought to give it my best go.
Very well. I take your lead on that one. I'll find a good excuse for you to extradite yourself from the conversation. And
don't worry about it. And Frank opens his jacket, sticks his hand into his chest, and with like a just pulls an extra Frank out. I'm gonna use my move that I used previously, my still and silent servant. I've been quiet here at the back of the room, and that's because it's been a clone the whole time. Mm-hmm. Frank has been off in the house instead.
Gotcha. I love that. That's so cool.
Okay, let's Ocean's 11 it right now to Frank. So Frank is presumably going through the rooms looking for clues. I'm really happy for you to roll this. I mean, I think it's got to be a veiled move because there's always some risk involved, given that there is this monstrous thing on the prowl. So it can't just be gather information. I will say basically, if you succeed, you are free to decide which guest's room you find this clue in, and I'll tell you what it is, if that makes sense. So you can pick where you find it.
All right. Do we have anything relevant? Oh, where's my sheet? I do have a brass-stained floor lamp. Could I make the argument that it has a rather long cord, and I'm just like carrying it like one would a torch, but then I have it like plugged in at the end of the hall, and every time I get to the end of the cord, I have to run back and unplug it in darkness, run forward to a closer plug it in, and then continue carrying it around.
I mean, we can make it battery powered, or I love that conceptually if you want to stick with the cord.
Well, I love having a limitation. I think in a horror setting, having to deal with darkness periodically is a great thing to have to deal with.
Perfect. Yeah, that can be advantage if you like.
All right. Let's go. Oh, that's wonderful. Wow. 665 on the dice. I'll take those boxcars.
Alrighty, 665. So you're looking for clues. I think it's evident that you can have two, or I can say you could find a useful item up here that you pocket. What would you prefer?
Let's go for 2 clues. I think I wanna move this mystery along. So
Okay, so you can obviously find them in the same place, or you can find them in 2 separate guests' rooms, or indeed maybe a staff member's room if you prefer. I think someone has helpfully listed the side characters in the assignment if you need a reminder.
I think because we've had we've seen some signage that makes us a little bit suspicious of the police in Glottage already. I think one of the rooms is going to be Commissioner Vandekamp's, and then let's do Leonora, our waitress or maid.
Alrighty. Okay. You do find something rather strange in the Vandekamp's room. So just opening a desk drawer, you find a small bag full of glimmering, it's not white, more like kind of a bone-colored powder. You can't quite see what it is. Someone else might know. You might know if you roll. It's in a little baggie, and it was very carefully concealed out the way. It looks a lot like it could be drugs. It could be poison. I guess it's up to you on the roll, but you do find this very suspicious looking substance in there. And in Leonora's room, I'm imagining all these kind of very opulent, grand guest rooms with huge king-sized beds, very ornate, boar heads on the walls, right down the end of the corridor, past the broom closet, so that the staff don't disturb the guests. You just push open this very sad-looking door to a sad-looking room. More of a shoebox than a room, a single bunk bed, and underneath it, you do find a small chest, which you open and rummage around in. In Leonora's room, you find something very interesting. It appears to be the obituary for Montessa Vernon's father and predecessor. We know, of course, from the statue outside that this is a family business that's been around for a very, very long time. This is an obituary for Montessa Vernon's father, the hotelier, who died in rather mysterious circumstances out on the slopes of the mountain. So when was Frank working here? I believe it's 15 years ago. We will adjust it because we've said that Frank was here a while ago. So 15 years ago, he died under mysterious circumstances on the mountain. Those are your clues. Okay, while we're dealing with that, flash right back to Nora and Vitria in the lift. And James has very sensibly suggested, let's condition it with zealots in pursuit as a condition. And I think very much as the lift doors close just in time as the blowtorch whooshes out towards your face, you can almost feel the heat of it going through the metal. But then the elevator begins to just jostle again and continue moving upwards. And it's almost a little bit comical because for a little while the elevator is moving slowly enough that you can hear the voices through the walls. After them! They're going up to the top! You can hear kind of clunk, 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 clunk as you go by floor until eventually you start moving faster than the pursuing zealots and the doors open at the very top. Now then, as you reach the penthouse floor, the very, very top of the elevator, the very top of the skyward sprawl, the doors open onto a temple, a gleaming temple, a manicured garden of living steel and concrete on an open roof. Glottage lies below you, and for a moment maybe you can imagine Lucien Baton's vast ego as he would have stood here on the roof looking out from his creation across the city, all of which is just small and insignificant below. It's exquisite, it's spotless, and we're going to paint the scene. as you gaze around this magnificent penthouse and the glass looking out onto that roof, how does the flawless and impeccable style of this penthouse evoke awe or dread? So paint the scene. How does the flawless and impeccable style of the penthouse evoke awe or dread? Over to you.
There are these kind of like brutalist, like concrete archings that somewhat like, I'm trying to think of the right word, not cascade. They just kind of like in that like Russian nesting doll way of like they just kind of like get smaller like progressively in this architectural display, but it's like you're staring down a wide and yawning concrete throat almost. It's very ominous.
Awesome, thank you.
I think the floor is mirror polished concrete with flecks of stone inside it, you know, that kind of textured concrete. And the mirror polish on it is so gleaming. And you know, it's like a reflection pond, but it's concrete. And it shouldn't actually be possible to get a sheen like that on concrete. And it's actually kind of, you can see all the pillars reflected in it, and it's makes you sick and dizzy.
I think that there are high shelves in the room who, you know, are cantilevered off of the walls, and they are made of, you know, thin sheets of concrete, and at the end of them they have like heavy iron balls, perfect spheres lining the lips of them. And by all means, given their weight, given their length from the wall, they should be like breaking under that strain, and yet they sit there perfect, seemingly supported, although from what support it cannot be seen. So I think that's kind of the awe element. And then also they are above your head, so if they do break, that's not going to feel good.
I think to fill in the spaces where the shelves aren't reaching, the lighting in the ceiling is a mixture of like, you know, like pot lighting, like the stuff that once it gets burnt out, you can't replace it because it's like built into the ceiling. And it's a stupid design, but we're not here to talk about that. But these ones do, if you were to look closely, they do actually have like a sort of a lever or like something at the edge where if they did burn out, you could actually replace the lights, which I guess somewhat is awe. But the rest of the lighting is kind of this like grand modern art, like metal and glass sculpture that is also like quite pointy, and you cannot see how it is attached to the ceiling. You can kind of only hope that it's securely attached, because like the shelves, if that thing falls, it is definitely going to do some damage.
Thank you for establishing so many death traps in the location that you're about to enter. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. And as you just looking around you at this magnificent yet potentially very deadly penthouse space, the doors on the roof just slide open and a procession enters. The disciples of the Dreams of Ease are dressed in crimson, what look like beautiful crimson robes, almost with ermine cowls. And it's only as they get a bit closer in their stately procession that you can see they are in fact wearing red bed sheets and duvet stuffing. So it's the fluff from the innards of mattresses has been pressed around them like an ermine cowl. And as they advance, just some of them swinging what appear to be homemade censers. You can faintly smell potpourri coming out of them. Their leader calls a halt. At their head is an older man, quick-witted. He has a quick look about him. He's in middle age with steely grey eyes and very neat white hair. He has a pair of pince-nez that again look very genteel, and it's perhaps only if you look close to it you can see that they're mismatched prescription lenses he's got on. And he's completely covered again in these bedsheet robes, his arms clasped tightly beneath them. He says, "Welcome. She predicted your coming."
Well, I think that you predicted that someone would come and serve you with this. And she holds up like a biased writ and says, "This place doesn't meet building codes, my friend."
Codes? What are codes but the rules of the unjust that attempt to bind us? Can you not look at this place and see that the great Lucien Baton had a dream to create something magnificent, something that could not be bound by the laws of architecture nor gravity, something that could ascend higher into the sky than any building. But enough. We knew you would be a devil's advocate, for as she predicted, there would be two of you. One, and he points to Nora, bearing the sacred writ of Lucien Baton, an advocate for the beauty of his work. The other, an emissary from the treacherous followers of the Slag King. A would-be destroyer, perhaps, or one who has come to make peace between us and them. Your brutal fellow disciples even now wage their war against us from below, seeking, like you, to take over this building in the name of their so-called code. You are allowed here as a guest, but I shall warn you. At the slightest moment of any trouble, we will fall upon you, and you will join your followers far below where they deserve to be.
We do not come to destroy, and those below, they're not from my persuasion of the Slag King's faith, to be sure. Essentially, we're here to investigate, resolve, and/or neutralize. We don't destroy unless absolutely necessary. We seek to understand what's happening up here. Please tell us of your faith, because as much as I personally am affronted, the Bureau demands a solution.
Our faith is very simple. There was one, a visionary, who could see what others could not, who could create what others could not, the great Lucien Baton. He believed he could build a tower that could ascend to the very heavens themselves. And so he has done it. With each new body added to the flesh of the tower, it grows and grows, and so we ascend with it, until we shall all become like gods, dwelling amongst the clouds. How could you seek to neutralize such a wondrous thing?
Do you want us to do the math on the number of bodies equals height of clouds thing, or have you guys figured that one out already?
He just smiles and says, "A god must feed. Every great work requires greater sacrifice."
You make a good point. Nora does sound kind of grumpy about that.
But I prattle on. Please, she will want to see you. And he kind of gestures out towards the roof, and just with a single motion, the robed dreamers of ease step to one side, forming an avenue through which you may pass.
I think Vitria turns to Nora and says, "We've never been in bigger danger than we are right now."
First time for everything. Nora's gonna like take one step, look back at Vitria, be like, "Are you coming?"
I hope your watcher wants there to be a new season.
Very nice. Well, you step out onto the roof, and this kind of beautiful, again, this gorgeous garden. The same sort of flesh plants that you saw far below are now magnificent trees. It's almost like a glade, but you are surrounded by the twisted remnants of human bodies, providing shade overhead. And you can see ahead on the very precipice of the tower, there's no handrail. She's just almost statue-like, like a gargoyle staring out over the city, is a very tall woman. She too is wearing these magnificent robes, but hers, they're almost mirror polished. As you get closer and closer, you can see the sun reflects off them, almost giving her an angelic aura. She turns very slowly to face you. You can see that her skin it's grey, just like the afflicted that you saw below, but it almost looks, it's got sort of the pock marks of insulation, of all things. She stares down at you, and the closer you get, the more you can see. She is perhaps 8 foot tall, this modernist statue of a woman, and her face, aquiline and stark, looks statuesque as well. She turns and looks down at you as you approach, and her gorgeous almond-shaped eyes are just weeping solid trails of rust down her face. She says in a voice that is certainly no longer human, "You have come as we knew you would. Welcome, child of Baton, who carries his work. Welcome, emissary of the Slag King. We hope for peace."
I'm trying to think of a way of doing an investigation here. I think we like basically have to ask, like, where is this going? Like, where are you, why are you, I mean, I know that that's the question, but like why do you need us to ascend? Or I'm just trying to think of, like, try and get her monologuing, basically.
Yeah, you can absolutely go for that.
I'm just thinking, yeah. So I'm going to try that as like an investigation, probably with presence, and kind of got nothing in terms of. Oh, I know. I'm going to show her my Employee of the Year award, and I'm going to say, "I am burdened with great purpose. I am considered excellent by those of my faith. I am ranked surveyor. I am a representative of the Bureau, and we would know why you seek to grow. Tell us your mysteries." So I guess I'm just I just want to see what this strange hallowed nightmare of asbestos will say to me. So that's just +0. I'm just checking my stats. Where is it? Yeah, if it's presence, it's +0. So I'm just gonna go for that. Oh, Jesus Christ! I just got a 4.
A 4. I mean, it's gather investigation, but we're gonna have a hard reaction here, I think. So let's jump right back to Dr. Harrow. Maybe 10 minutes later, you have given your speech. The guests are now just kind of loitering in the lobby, muttering amongst themselves, kind of casting looks up at you like, "It's no detective, doesn't look like a detective to me." Mercy Vanderkamp jostling her husband, like, "You should have taken charge, Ernie. You should have stood up. That you're very charismatic when you want to be, and now everyone thinks he's the hero. We need to show him." Like, there's lots of very not quite so furtive gossip going on below you as Frank descends again from the guest bedrooms.
Just to be clear, I feel like we probably have to do a little sleight of hand here to make sure that the extra hand and Frank aren't seen in the same proximity together. So I imagine that's handled. That was part of the plan in some way. So Frank seamlessly rejoins things. I think when you walk up to Nim, He's standing there rather nonchalantly, but speaks a little bit out the side of his mouth, just being like, "Did you find anything worthwhile, or did I make an ass out of myself for nothing?"
Frank reaches into his breast pocket and pulls out the bag filled with the bone-colored powder, and he presses it into Dr. Harrow's hands. Does this mean anything to you?
Not at the moment, but I will take a look at it when I have a moment to do so. We should probably speak with some of these aggravated people.
Are they aggravated because they're worried, or are they aggravated because of something else?
Yes.
Fair enough. There was that, and also, and he makes sure Montessa's not within earshot. Montessa Vernon's dad, he died 5 years before I even worked here, about 15 years ago, and he died out on the mountain somewhere. Seems like, well, nobody's quite sure what went wrong.
Most interesting indeed. Well, then it is definitely all the better that we begin the work of speaking to these people and figuring this out before something happens. I have the distinct inclination that this latecomer may not necessarily be operating on its own whims. And at least one person here is responsible for directing its ire.
Yeah, I'm starting to get the vibe that obviously this was intended, and I worry about how many casualties there have to be before they deem their plan complete.
Oh, that David, preemptive star. That's the perfect segue into doing my verse anyway. Yeah, it was a great segue. Because I think when you say exactly that, Nim kind of gets this, for a moment, 1,000-yard stare, like look in his eye, just like that like how many people have to die before it justifies their aims, something like that. It's like just that those words kind of fall over him like a cascading avalanche. And we hear that all the sound kind of like numbs and deadens a little bit as we fade to darkness. And yeah, I marked one of my verses of history, flashback showing how you had no choice but to sign a contract as a custodian. I prefer my opinion to yours, Dr. Harrow. Those were the last words Nim needed to hear before he pulled the trigger. We hear a gunshot go off, and we see Dr. Nim, eyes wide, in a dimly lit space. You can see the radium green glowing prayer mark tattoo, the third eye on his forehead, radiating with nuclear symbology. As we slowly pan back, we see his forearm, the smoking gun that he holds there aloft, and we pan back through the bullet hole in this person's head, coming out their back, a figure slumped in an office chair, Nim staring somewhat slack-jawed, horrified. And as he blinks, we hear this ringing tinnitus sensation as his hand begins to shake, and he looks at the gun as if he's wondering why it just made that noise. And his arm slowly begins to buckle under the weight in his palm, as just kind of like drops by his side. Looking on, we see that the man he has just shot in the head at his desk, head snapped back, blood splattered against a portrait behind him. There's a little placard on the desk that says Solomon Hauser, Minister of Energy and Urban Development, or Urban Redevelopment. And he is in the offices of the Ministry of Energy and Urban Redevelopment in Nesh, and he is staring at this body. We next see Nim, a fugitive, fleeing through the parts of the city that were heavily damaged during the war, through ruined canals choked with debris, dried out and weeds beginning to grow in the bottom, hiding out, being pursued by soldiers at times, being officials, a montage of him on the run, squatting in buildings. Eventually, he made his way in his sort of fugitive run across the way into the Ignathian Peninsula, where again we just see him on the road, disheveled, homeless, paranoid, always looking over his shoulder, coughing. Some night sitting there with a lit cigarette in his hand, breathing in deep the benefits of the good neighbor nicotine, but it's almost without pleasure, cursing under his breath, and just asking himself, but also the chemical convocation some nights in his shocked, traumatized state, just why? You are better than this. You are better than that. Why would you willingly take that offerings from them? Why? He is shocked, and this continues for a time. Truly, we don't see how long it goes for, until one day he is caught stealing food by some police officers, brought in for it, and he is in the dim, fluorescently lit interrogation room of a precinct. He is huddled up against himself, doesn't really understand why he's in this room. He expected to just be thrown in a lockup for the weekend, maybe a few days. He doesn't really understand necessarily the ins and outs of the peninsula's governance, but surely it's not that different. Why are they putting him in an interrogation chamber like this? And the man who enters the room is not a cop, or at least he's not a cop that Nim has ever seen before. He's, if anything, resembles in many ways the man he killed some months ago. The bureaucratic sort, a suit, a tie, a pearly white smile that never quite reaches the eyes, coiffed hair, holding a thick bundle of files, who sits across from him, and with that snake oil salesman greasy grin of his, just kind of says, Dr. Nimhur Harrow of the Nesh Collective Energy Research and Development. Long and storied career. My name is Kenneth L. Slaughter. I am the senior supervisor at Biased. Are you familiar with our department in Western Glottage? Nim, who's heard of the peninsula's bureau that hunts down stray deities like this, just kind of like nods once. And Kenneth Slaughter, with simple bureaucratic language, explains the situation to him. I'm offering you a choice, Dr. Harrow. We can either see you extradited back to the CLS at the mercy of your own government in response to the crimes you have definitively committed, or he slides a single sheet of paper across the table to him. I can promise protection and perhaps even a prestigious career if you agree to sign on as a custodian. The choice is ultimately yours, but please, I have meetings to make in the next half hour, and I would not like to be late for them. So with really no other choice, Nim signed the contract.
Building directly off that, we see that scene. I actually marked the same verse. So we see the scene pan then, or actually pull from there back to Nash. We are outside that same building where Dr. Harrow killed someone just some short number of months ago. Some amount of time has passed, and we go inside through one of the large windows, and there's a laboratory. There are beakers and test tubes. There are all manner of tins and boxes there along the walls on shelves. There's documents there at the end of the tables. And Frank, still with an official badge to work here, is just wiping down some of the beakers, setting them back on the shelves. He's dusting off some of the documents. He's tidying up this laboratory space. There's some folks who come in lab coats. They go through some of the documents. They give Frank a nod, but Frank is serving now here as a different kind of custodian. When Dr. Harrow disappeared, he had no immediate work and just kind of came into doing this for them. But as the lab coats leave, a man in a dark suit, even darker glasses, walks in. It is our supervisor who we've seen before. His name is Professor Vanderhorn. Professor Vanderhorn walks in and sets a manila envelope on one of the tables in front of Frank, draws his attention from where he's cleaning and taps on it. You're not contracted to here. You're contracted to Dr. Harrow, yes? And Frank, not well. Of course, I'm not slacking on my duties. Dr. Harrow vanished. I look for him every evening, but I haven't seen hide nor he didn't drop me any line. And he open the envelope, Frank. I'll take you to Dr. Harrow. And Frank immediately, his face lights up. You will? Perfect, wonderful. I'll be right there with you. And he finishes wiping his beaker, sets it on the shelf, picks up the envelope, and follows him happily out the door.
Thank you both. That was so good. Okay, I think that's a great jumping off point then to go back to Vitria and Nora. So Vitria, having failed the gather information check, having asked the question, why do you need our help to ascend? And I think because you said, James, that you're gonna write a verse, I'm just gonna get really mean here. I think Mother Asbestos just looks down on you, and for a second, those very sharp aquiline features just almost soften. And then her eyes begin to glow. And she says, need you? Why would he need you? Watch. And Vitria, you have a feeling of almost falling forwards, as if the Slag King were tilting reality itself, and you were just tumbling off the roof to the very precipice, and then freezing there. The concrete rot traveling up through your legs to your torso, making you a perfect gargoyle on the edge of the skyward sprawl. And you watch, still alive in some form, but no longer human, as the sun rises and sets, the sun rises and sets. And you see what will happen in the months and years to come if you fail to resolve this matter. You see people from all around you, all across Glottage, coming in their vast hordes to the skyward sprawl itself. Just armies of people in their thousands, marching, getting closer and closer, piling in, and the flesh of the tower growing and growing as you climb ever higher. It's a glorious sight as you watch the world emptying itself out to create this magnificent spire, taller than any tower in the world, perhaps taller than the gods itself, a real world Tower of Babel just ascending higher and higher without end.
And I figured out how to combine two verses. So I'm going to mark my first verse of prophecy, the Whispered Psalm. And I previously, in order to bump up our roll, I marked a flashback to your adulthood, showing the parts of your life you neglected in pursuit of miracles. And my whispered psalm is, recall a time when you first saw construction as beautiful. And I think basically it appears in the form of like a time lapse, a bit like we just had with Gargoyle Vitria, of an office, like a very nice office, big, architect's office with a wall, with a single wall of a whiteboard, like a sort of for like a prototyping sort of design wall, and lots of little standing desks and models. And we just see a time lapse of Vitria never leaving, sleeping on a camp bed, going into the ensuite, just day and night, day and night, day and night. As a surveyor, as an architect, never leaving the office. And it just speeds up, and it gets more and more disordered, and there's all bunches of candles lit in the corner, and she gets more and more disheveled looking, and we see her just slowly adding this massive montage of architectural blueprints to the wall, and it just gets bigger and bigger. And then it ends with her having neglected everything but this great consuming task, kneeling before a wall of like a montage of what that seems like chaos to our eyes, of architectural plans, like an entire full wall of them with these bunches of candles that like dripping wax on the floor, and her just kneeling like she's praying at a shrine, with sort of tears running down her red eyes, just gazing up at this thing as if it was like a statue of the Madonna or something, of this vast and incoherent plan that she'd created for the Slag King.
Beautiful. You blink and you are standing in front of Mother Asbestos, and her face looks gentle once more. But stranger, you do have a feeling as if you've narrowly escaped death, but looking up into her eyes, it's as if she knows that as well. She knows that you've written a verse to the Slag King. And she simply says, if the Slag King loves rules, why does he break them? If the building must have a code, then how do we crack it? She just leans forward and traces a symbol on your forehead, a prayer mark. And so this is her special move. You have got access, because you wrote a verse in her domain, Vitria, to the ritual of the skyward sprawl. So I will paste it into the chat. It is essentially a move to call upon the power of the skyward sprawl while you're in the tower. So it says, when you call upon the power of the skyward sprawl, roll with communion. If you have the condition concrete rot, you get advantage. On a hit, a garden of steel and concrete erupts from the ground to do your bidding. So that is that. Mother Asbestos is sort of smiling down at you. You wanted to kind of get a bit of information out of her. You got a mixed success. I will leave the consequence for next time, but I will give you a clue to go away with. I think the clue is this. Mother Asbestos says, you have questions, I know, but you will understand. Please, we have been gathering the sacred writings of Lucien Piton so that you may understand his will and his intent. When you understand everything, I know, you will not wish to harm the sprawl. And the major domo behind her kind of comes up, and he's clutching. It's kind of it's framed. It's almost on a pillow, a document, and hands it over to you, Nora. And as you look at it, you see that this is a redacted government document. It's about research into the upper legal limits of peninsular airspace. It's about the upper legal limits of peninsular airspace. So that's your clue. Alrighty. So, Nora, would you like to give us the final verse of the day, which is your verse that you'll mark together? And then I think we'll probably end the session there.
Sorry, I was just writing the clue and I misspelled peninsula. Hang on. Okay. So the verse that I marked was a flashback to your youth that shows your rebellious experimentation with illegal divinities. And I think we're going to kind of focus on the title of the document that we have just been given. specifically the airspace part, and we're kind of going to dissolve to a nice warm summer day, and there's a group of kids kind of playing in a field that is empty of other people and also things that could generally be considered fun. It looks like there's like playground equipment around them, but if you look a bit closer, it's more like, you know, barbed wire over a pit in the ground that people would have to crawl under, and like a climbing wall that also has barbed wire on the top. So it's like training equipment rather than, you know, stuff for kids' games. They probably shouldn't be playing here. They are. They shouldn't be here. The thing is that none of them actually have parents to watch them right now, and school is out for the summer, so they don't have teachers watching them either. And you've got just a bunch of like 10 to 15-year-olds, and they are bored. They are so bored. Like, yeah, okay, the barbed wire over a pit. Yeah, we've all seen it. We've all had races crawling under it. We are bored. And then you see Nora's brother, who I gave him a name. Give me a second. Her brother Lincoln, who is, I didn't decide if he was younger or older. I think he's older. So like, he's like one of the 15-year-olds. Nora is one of the 10-year-olds. And he's like, man, let's go somewhere else. Let's do something more fun. And one of the other kids is like, there's nothing fun here. What do you mean fun? He's like, and then Lincoln is like, I mean, there's the armory. And all of the other kids are kind of like, yeah, there's the armory. Yeah, that'd be cool. Let's go play in the armory. And Nora is, yeah, she's going along with this. It would be more fun than the training ground slash playground slash. Seriously, there are kids in this army base. Why did no one think up something to entertain them? Just very poor planning. So you've got this like pack of kids going across the base, like dodging adults, hiding behind buildings, and like crawling over top of buildings, and maybe some of the adults see them and then pretend that they didn't see them. Or maybe they are actually fairly good at hiding. Depends on the kid. And they make it to the armory. And the illegal divinities part of this is, I figure if there's a place where you have weapons and gunpowder, you probably wouldn't be allowed to have things in there that cause fire. And of course, when school was in, they went on a little field trip, and Nora picked up a souvenir that was just a very pretty bracelet that's been carved with symbols of a fire god. And, you know, it's a god of wildfires, which the peninsula's government has been trying to stamp out because wildfires aren't the most helpful thing to have, especially when they're getting worse over the years. And she's got this bracelet with her, and as they enter the armory, she's kind of running it between her fingers. And you can see just before she steps inside, there's a little spark. And I think we're going to stop there. Probably everyone is fine. I think we have harm to kids as a line. So like everybody is fine, but she did bring a symbol of a wildfire god into a place where there's gunpowder. So a little bit daring for a 10-year-old.
Man, yeah, and the most dramatic thing she could possibly do, right? If I was a god of theatre, I'd love to see that. Amazing. All right, thank you. Yeah, we'll end it there with Dr. Harrow and Frank about to start chatting to the suspects, Nora and Vitria on the roof with Mother Asbestos, who is asking them to initiate some kind of peace proceedings. Amazing. All right, let's go to XP and advancements. And I do think every single one of you has done the meet with a god, angel, saint, or other divine manifestation. David, do you want to kick us off for Frank?
Yeah, sure. I actually think that might be my only one this time. I had, did you go to your way to connect with the local community, and were you vulnerable with someone? And Frank did a lot of like solo stuff this time. So he did like try to dig someone out of the snow, but they were also already very dead. So we could say that that's going out of your way to connect with the local community, but there was no local community left to connect with at that time.
Yeah, I think the one's fair, isn't it? Yeah, there's not really, it's not a community if it's a corpse.
No, not really, not particularly.
Okay, amazing, thank you. Vitria.
Sorry, I'd forgotten how to unmute for some reason. Yeah, so I definitely engage with multiple gods, angels, and divine manifestations. I sort of struggle with my personal faith, both with like sort of how morally ambiguous for a worshipper of the Slag King this whole Skyward Sprawl situation is, and just seeing basically how sort of toxic her relationship with the Slag King's faith is through the verses. And I did speak about terror, sublime joy, and marvelous natures of architecture in a few different places. So, and I'm desperately trying to reduce my unsafe. So I'm going to do that again and take 2.
All right, amazing. And Alex for Dr. Nim.
Yeah, I think I was going for the struggling with personal faith with a bit of my verse with him kind of like ranting about something. It was alluded to that it was like some aspect of his like faith that it was like really reckoning with. I didn't explore, I didn't like fully contextualize it in the verse, but like that was kind of like what I was aiming for.
I think that's valid and justifiable if you want to take it.
Cool.
Cool. So 3. And then Ryan for Nora.
I think, well, did you engage with the god? Yeah. Directly. Or other divine manifestation. I feel like the ghost could also count there, but yeah, marking that one. Did you struggle with your personal faith? That, I don't know. What do you call it? Can stuff that happens in verses count with that? Because if so, what would you do if you were rich verse might count, because
it's a thin line because most of the verses are about struggling to some point, but I think because you've only got one otherwise, I'm happy for you to take it up to 2. I think that's fair.
Okay. I keep missing the undermine orders of superiors to pursue personal interests. I think this is like the second time I've missed that one.
You guys, yeah, you're very law abiding.
Are we though? Like, Dr. Harrow murdered a guy.
Mm.
He's not confirmed dead. Well, in my verse, yes, but I wasn't a custodian when that happened.
Also, he radiated a guy.
He's fine-ish.
Is he? Is he though?
No one ever comes out of this game looking very good.
Yeah.
So, except for Brute, he seems like a lovely guy.
He's a good guy.
Awesome. All right, thank you. So that means Dr. Harrow is going to get an advancement, which I'm excited to see what Alex picks. Awesome. Stars and wishes. Anyone want to throw some out there?
Yeah, I mean, happy to throw out again, I mentioned this in our chat, but really awesome tag teaming of verses, David, with following. I mean, like, and also just that was really cool how you established. I really like that how you established that like their history goes back even before the Bureau, and that he was sweeping out there and doing work, and that was a really fun callback to the very first session with the professor as well. That was really cool. I liked that a lot. Again, James, you wrote the Skyward Sprawls, so every time something fucked up happens, I'm just like, man, James, what have you done? But this session was a lot of great contributions from David, Ryman, myself, of course, too. Really love the nest of disgusting possibility that we can get into with concrete and architectural horror, but still a massive star to you for the scenario itself. Mother Asbestos is a fascinating character. Also, like, a little star to you gaming your own scenario by being like, aha, I got a special move because I did a thing in this location. Ha ha ha. That was great. Yeah, no, just overall, I'm really. This was a very verse heavy session, and like in a way that I liked a lot. I really enjoyed hearing more from Nora's verses as well. And also like Vitria's, just everyone collected. That's a collective star for everyone, because even though we may not have like done necessarily like a ton of heavy lifting, we still answered a question, but there was so much like cinematic and narrative character that we got to explore this session through those verses that it felt very very satisfying this many sessions in. So I liked it a lot. Wish wise, I would like to. I'm very excited to solve a murder. I love a whodunit. And getting some more investigatory stuff done so we can start getting some clues. That's going to be good. I really like how the rivals are continuing to be set up, especially with your little scene at the beginning there, John. That was great. I know that we still have a bit to go before we get a confrontation with them, but still, I'm very much excited to see how this relationship with our rivals continues to progress or devolve in some way.
Yeah, stars definitely for the sleight of hand with the extra hand, and I think the flashback to that worked really well. And a very weird star for James's description of the like reflecting pool floors in the penthouse. Because I was gonna be like, I was gonna make a Tumblr joke and have it like floors covered with like red paths. Tumblr's color theory joke. But then James made it like so much better, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna paint over that. And Dr. Harrow's flashback to being on the run and having to sign with the custodians was very like I guess kind of cinematic is partially the word, but also like very feeling. I don't know, but like it was interesting to see what he was experiencing, and then like just getting caught because he was stealing is both very classic and seems very unlike Dr. Harrow. So like that was interesting. And then also, yeah, how it linked with Frank's flashback was really nice. Wishes, yeah, also excited to see how the murder mystery goes. I keep saying isolation thriller just because like this like hotel in the mountains, snowed in. It's like very, very setting and very isolation and very fun. So looking forward to that. And a like rest in peace for the cook, the poor guy.
I just actually got a brand new start for the session from just a few moments ago. I jotted down in my notes the conversation that just played out. You all are a pretty law-abiding group. Dr. Harrow killed someone. He's not confirmed dead. He also radiated a guy. He's doing all right, ish. Stuff like that I do love. The whole meta commentary on our adventure so far is a good time. I also, man, every time we cut away to the Skyward Sprawl, because like I'm getting into character for our isolation thriller and this murder mystery, and I'm in that, and then we cut away and I'm like, oh yeah, things are just going nuts over there, and it's been that way the entire time. Having an elevator that like squeezes the elevator up is disturbing. I hate it. It needs to go right out. I'm so thankful it's there. A small wish. I want more bellhop. I hope he reappears before we're done there. I need more bellhop in my life. But I think everything proceeding over there is great. I'm really enjoying, of course, the stuff with Frank and Dr. Harrow at the house. I'm really excited to see where that goes next. There's like a part of me that really wants to, now that like we're all together here in this room, rather than just kind of continue asking like normal questions, like start putting pressure on people and see how the room starts to crack, because I feel like that's where we're going to get the most interesting answers. So I'm just really excited to keep pulling at the strings of it all.
Yeah, I just first off, a couple of people said it, but huge star for James, because when you're running the Skyward Sprawl, you know, with the rest of the assignments, you kind of get used to, okay, well, you know, it's a la the podcast, it's a faintly bucolic location, lots of normal people, and then a big spooky entity. But the Skyward Sprawl, whether you're looking at the locations or the side characters, everyone's a little freak. Brute, Mother Asbestos, Brother Rebar. We didn't even really touch on the Slag King's people, but they are also juicy and weird and thoroughly unique. And so it feels like such a great standout assignment, because it goes up to 11 straight away and doesn't really stop. So yeah, really love that. Love all of your verses. I know, Alex, we were saying cinematic for yours. It seemed almost literary. It seemed like the first line of a novel when we hear, I have to disagree with you, Dr. Harrow. Bang. Fantastic. You know, I would have been hooked if that was the first page in a 400 page tome I was reading. Just love that. Love the Poirot and Hastings gathering the suspects vibes of Dr. Harrow and Frank now together. Really loved all of the verses, especially Nora's at the end, which is so intriguing. Particularly because it seems to be doing something a bit different to relating to her god. So I can't wait to see where that goes. So yeah, just as ever, love how you roleplay your characters. Love hearing what you do with all the storytelling. It's just fantastic, and I feel very lucky.
I'm really struggling to pick stars, because like the whole session was kind of a giant star. Like there were so many good things, like the verses all connecting up, and there's just so many moments, like so many amazing paint the scene like answers, and I actually am finding it hard to sort of distinguish, because it was just like fantastic in general. So I think I'm just gonna go for the wish that I really want to see the like classic isolation horror, and then there were none kind of ending for the mystery with Dr. Harrow and Frank for Winter's Spite. And yeah, I feel like if it's at 11, the Skyward Sprawl, John, you kind of put it at like 13 or something now. So it's just so like outlandishly like deranged now. Like, and I love it. I don't know how we're gonna like get out of it, but I'm not sure that Vitria is capable of doing it anymore. So I want to see. I think Nora, like the fact that Nora's God wants the ratings, is the only reason we're gonna survive, basically. But yeah, there's just so much to love. I just want to see how it plays out, like both assignments. So it's just such good fun.
Yeah, I on that, my wish is, yeah, I'm really excited to see what Vitria and Nora do in particular, because Vitria is kind of tangled up in all this as a follower of this lag game. So really intrigued. Awesome. Okay,
I
go
just
on.
realized if we're banking on the Watcher of the Wings to get us out of this, we can't set it all on fire because we've done that already. So
Derivative. That's no, we can't do that. That's a cliche. We need an original ending, you know.
Excited to see whatever that's going to be. Awesome. All right, let's pause it there. Thank you very much, folks, and thank you to anyone who watches this.